let's make some commanders.
I'm a big fan of True Green 7 and other Fakeamon content creators, where they'll take some random concept and turn it into a Pokemon. Some fake design that's inspiring and interesting and pretty and cool, and like, I want to do that, but what about for Magic cards? The question becomes, what's the inspiration? What is the prompt that I'm going to take and turn into a Magic card? Well, if I'm inspired by Pokemon, why not Pokemon? But just taking any Pokemon and making them into Magic, I mean, that's been done. But what about Pokemon Dex entries? All Pokemon have a Pokedex entry. That's usually 1 or 2 sentences. That's just some bizarre fact. I could turn that into a legendary creature. I could turn that into your commander. So let's take a look at a couple weird options and see what we can come up with. Let's start with Magikarp, an incredibly well-known Pokemon. It's just a fish and it sucks. And all of its Dex entries talk about how much it sucks. They're so brutal, this little guy. But I'm not actually trying to make a Magic card for Magikarp. I'm instead trying to make a Magic card for its Dex entry. There's plenty of Dex entries for every Pokemon, so we can look through and find whatever is the most inspiring. In Pokemon Sun, the Dex entry reads, "Although weak and helpless, this Pokemon is incredibly fertile. They exist in such multitudes, you'll soon grow tired of seeing them." Now that's fascinating. I think there's definitely potential for making a token generation creature. That said, the goal for this is to make a legendary creature. This wouldn't be something that makes clones of itself like a Scoot Swarm, although I think that would be really, really cool. So maybe it should be. We'll have to see what we come up with, but it's definitely inspiring and I'm ready to take on that challenge.
First, we have Sprig the Spreading Solace, a green and white commander for 1 hybrid mana. It's a 1/1 Saproling, which is a creature type that has never been printed on an actual card before, only ever made as tokens. Sprig reads, "If damage would be dealt by a Saproling you control, prevent that damage and create that many 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens." So yes, if everything goes as planned, you're going to make so many tokens that they will exist in such multitude, you'll soon grow tired of seeing them. In fact, so tired that you're going to have to kill Sprig himself if you want the rest of them to be able to keep attacking and not just keep making more of themselves.
Mascot of the series, Pikachu is an obvious pick for another one of these cards. Most of their entries are really just, it generates electricity, which is fine, but it's not a lot to go on. However, this time in Ultra Sun, its Dex entry reads, "Its nature is to store up electricity. Forests where nests of Pikachu live are dangerous, since the trees are so often struck by lightning." Obviously still talking about how it generates electricity and shocks things, but actually talking about forests and trees and maybe even destroying forests? There's definitely something there that I can work with.
Now we've got Arca, the Living Storm, a 5-mana red 2/2 legendary phoenix. I really want to play with the idea that forests are being destroyed by these little buggers. So I came up with, whenever you sacrifice a land, create a red elemental creature token, with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. Then, for red and green, return Arca from your graveyard to the battlefield, then sacrifice a forest. If I was going to make a land sacrifice commander, it was important to me that they were red and green, and that they themselves both could sacrifice lands, but actually care about lands being sacrificed. There's a lot of sacrifice effects in red and green, and they're usually not really worth it. Having this have an actual legitimate benefit for these sacrifice effects, I think it seems really cool.
Alright, I think we want to round this out with a third. So, what should that be? We got Magikarp, we got Pikachu, pretty well-known faces. How about Bidoof? You might not know Bidoof. Bidoof is my favorite Pokemon, so this is just purely self-indulgent. For the most part, Bidoof is just a beaver. A lot of the entries talk about it gnawing on things to dull down its insides so they don't keep growing forever and ever, like a beaver does. There is one that talks about having nerves of steel that nothing can perturb it. It's more agile than it appears, which is fascinating, and I didn't know that about Bidoof, but isn't really very interesting to inspire a commander. However, in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it simply says, it lives in groups by the water. It chews up boulders and trees around its nest with its incisors. Now, that doesn't say it does that to whittle them down. It makes it sound like it just can eat boulders and trees, which I think is a great prompt. Maybe like some big troll that eats trees and rocks. A lot of different cool directions here. I'm excited to tackle it.
Last, we have Vera Balluna's Culinarian, a 4-mana green and blue 3/4 giant artificer. They read, artifacts you control are foods in addition to their other types, and have 2 tap, sacrifice this permanent, you gain 3 life. You know, the food ability. They also read, whenever you sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that's a giant or has an adventure. See, Balloona is one of the Eldraine giants, and they're basically the only commander that cares about adventures. I'm more interested in the giants angles, but it felt like a fun nod to have an Eldraine-based commander that cares not just about food, but also adventures. Two mechanics that originated on that plane.
And those are my 3 new commanders inspired by Pokedex entries. Hope you had a good time. I try and put out a video like this every week, maybe discussion or speculation for the future of Magic, maybe riffing on an existing card, or maybe something completely original. Regardless, I've been Darcy Bits, have a great night, and I'll see you next time.